part of recovery and part of reparenting ourselves is identifying the lies and replacing them with the truth. So the first one that many have is, my situation is hopeless. I can't recover. And that comes out of that helplessness of complex trauma, where a child tries and tries and tries to resolve their problems and their pain, and nothing works, and they just get to a point of helplessness and hopelessness that now in adult life, when they come to very difficult situations, they can very quickly go back to just this feeling of hopelessness. I can't do it. It's too much. The truth is, you might feel hopeless, so your limbic brain is being triggered, but your cortex should be able to come to a point where it realizes, no, I'm not the helpless child now. I'm an adult who has tools. I'm an adult who has supports. It's going to be difficult, but it's not hopeless. I can do it. And just let me add to this that there is so much evidence today available now to show that recovery from trauma is possible. Thousands have done it. Yes, it takes a lot of work and there's a lot of time involved, but healing is possible. The second one is kind of the flip side of that, and that is that there's a magic bullet out there somewhere that will automatically fix me. So it'll automatically take away my addiction issues. It automatically just heal all my trauma, and I won't have to deal with anything painful. Some find that in kind of a religious environment, that somehow God is just going to magically fix them. Others find it in, if I take a program, it's going to magically fix me. And so there's something in all of us that longs for healing that's not painful and healing that's quick, that's built into our limbic brain. But the reality is there's no magic bullets. Recovery takes hard work. Yes, there are tools. Yes, there are modalities that we're finding very helpful, but there are no magic bullets. It takes time and work. Some want to propose, and then others believe it, that recovery is possible without having to experience painful memories or flashbacks or having to deal with painful emotions. And what I would say is, I got to qualify this one. I don't think recovery requires that you go through every memory, every painful thing that happened to you and all its horrific detail. I don't see value in that. But you have to be willing to go back and look at the wound in general, the emotions that came out of it, so that now you can resolve those emotions. Now you can work through them in a healthy way that leads to them being resolved. So I am not proposing horrific, detail-oriented, every little thing has to be gone through. But I am not saying you can avoid going through painful emotions. That is an important part of recovery. Recovery is not just learning new tools. Recovery requires healing the wounds of the past that have never been able to heal, the wounds that can still be triggered and send you spiraling into old behaviors. Line number 4, if I go to treatment for a couple months, then I'll be fixed. And so this person isn't looking for a magic bullet per se, but they're looking for a quick fix. That a program, let's say 2-month-long program, that's going to fix everything and then I'm good to go. The first 2 months can get you off to a great start. They can give you so much self-awareness, so many good tools. They can get the healing started. But as you keep going, you're going to go to deeper and deeper levels of healing. And so I'm not minimizing the value of a 2-month program that's intense and focused, but don't think that's where it ends. That's just the beginning of the journey, and it gets you off to a good start. Well, then some flip to the other side. Well, if it looks like I'm going to be dealing with my issues for the rest of my life, I guess you're saying I'll never get better. So is all this hard work worth it? So what I want people to understand is, yes, you're going to be dealing with some of it for the rest of your life. But in the beginning, you're dealing with it intensely every day with lots of pain and work. As you go along, you get triggered less. The triggers are less intense. You respond with tools so that you get out of the spiraling behavior quicker. And so you begin to go, wow, I'm seeing more positive stuff in my life, more positive emotions than negative, more pleasure, joy, rest than just work, work, work all the time. So yes, you're dealing with stuff, but not as frequently, not with the same intensity. Some think recovery is linear. And so it's like you start at a bottom and it just gets slowly better, 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 better until you get to a point where you're kind of over everything and you stay there. That might work in a medical model if you have a deep cut with stitches or surgery, and it's a very linear healing model that takes place over 6 weeks or so. Doesn't work in trauma. Trauma, it's very up and down. You have growth, then you hit a new area and looks like you regress a little bit. But then you learn from that and then you go up again, but then you hit a new issue and then looks like you regress again. And so it's very up and down, but over the years you see that there's an upward trend to the healing and growth. And so this is not a linear model. This is a model that's marked by highs and lows, failures, times when you feel stagnant, times when you just think, will this ever end? I want something that's quicker and done with. It's a very different model than the medical model. Another one is very common out of complex trauma, and that is only weak people need therapy or support groups. So what happened for many children in complex trauma was if you cry, if you are in pain, and you should solve it yourself. If you need others, you're weak. That's a sign of weakness, needing others. You need to be independent. That's bad teaching. We are human. We have limitations. Nobody can be Superman. Nobody can do everything. We need each other. We were wired to need each other. It's not a sign of weakness. We need to connect. That's a sign of health. And so recovery is connecting, helping each other, supporting each other, meeting needs, getting others to meet needs I can't meet myself. That's not a sign of weakness. That's a sign of being a healthy human. And so you need to kind of relearn what being human is and what weakness is. Lie number 8. If I do everything right, I will never have a bad day. I will get to a point where I won't struggle. I'll always be in a good mood. But if I have a bad day and I'm still hurting, then I must be doing something wrong or the process isn't working. So again, that's just a very misguided understanding of recovery. It's thinking that the ideal goal that you should be reaching is to be happy all the time, to not be human. But what the goal is, I want to be fully human, which means I want to experience all of my emotions. I want to be able to cry when I'm in pain. I want to be able to admit fear when I'm in danger. I want to be able to admit anger when something that violates love's happening. I just don't want to be happy all the time. That was a complex trauma mindset that was the sign of being healthy and strong. But that's misguided. We are wanting to be a healthy human that experiences all the emotions, knows how to manage them, and knows how to process them and resolve them. That is the goal. Then some still have this belief that there's only one type of treatment that works. And this has been around for so long. And to me, it's very much a shame-based thing that says, I need to be better than you. So the way that works for me has to be the best way. And it has to be the only way. And that makes me now superior to you. What we know in complex trauma is there's a bunch of different modalities that are very helpful, but it depends on the person. It depends on where you're at in your healing journey. And so what might work for one person isn't going to really help the other person. What might not be helpful for you today might be helpful for you in a year. And so part of trauma therapy is very eclectic. You need to find out what works for the person and what they need at this point in their healing journey. There's not just some one size fits all. Number 10, and I'm going to combine 3 here. So number 10 is repeated failure means I will never get it, so I might as well give up. Number 11, failure means that I'm back at square one. And number 12, if I fail, the best way to get myself back on track is to be very hard on myself. This again to me comes out of complex trauma, where failure was seen as there's no way to resolve it. Only bad comes out of failure. It means you're a bad person. In a healthy home, failure is part of growing up. Failure is something that is a good thing, is an expected thing. You learn from it. You benefit from it. Failure is not something that you get punished for. It's something you learn from. It is something you get compassion for. But in complex trauma, you fail, now you're going to get punished. And then you learn to punish yourself with a strong internal critic. And so it's really, again, reframing failure and getting past the bad teaching of complex trauma to see that failure can actually be a teacher. It can be a guide. It doesn't mean I'm a terrible person. There's no cause for shame here. I need to have compassion to myself. And it doesn't mean I'm back at square one. It doesn't mean I haven't learned anything. No, it just means it's pointing me to a new tool that I need to learn. So reframe failure. Then I want to combine the next 3 that are very common for people in recovery. Number 1, if I do well in recovery, my parents will finally validate me. Next one, if I do well in recovery for 2 months, my friends, parents, and children will start to trust me again. And 15, if I do well in recovery, my partner and my family will want to change too. All of those to me are unrealistic expectations. So if you do well in recovery, your parents may validate you. But if you grew up in complex trauma where you were never validated, where your parents always found something to criticize, I doubt they're going to validate you today. I doubt they're going to say, we're proud of you. And so if you continue to hope for that, you just keep setting yourself up to be disappointed. You keep setting yourself up to chase after their validation and giving them power to keep hurting you. And so what I encourage people to do is stop chasing your parents' validation, because there's a good chance you're not going to get it if you've never gotten it. Grieve that, it's painful, but learn to validate yourself. Learn to have healthy mirrors validate you. That's so important. Then it's very doubtful that your parents or your partner is all going to say, oh, you changed, now we want to change. If they're still in complex trauma, what they've been doing in the family system is saying there's problems in the family because you're the problem. If you just get yourself straightened up, then all the family problems will go away. They've never been willing to look at themselves. They've never been willing to see that they might be part of the contributors to the problems in the family or even to your own problems. So why are they going to do that now? No, it's possible that some of them are going to go, wow, I want to change too. And thankfully we see that happen. But sadly, most family members, once you change, they're not going to line up and say, I want to change too. They're just going to find something else to still make you the problem, to avoid looking at themselves. Sadly, that's the reality, and that's very frustrating. And then, if you've been making bad decisions while you were kind of before recovery in your behaviors, and you hurt your children, your spouse, your parents, your friends, they stopped trusting you because you were lying, because you were dishonest in all kinds of different things, because you're always manipulating. What many tend to do is they come into recovery and go, okay, I'm serious. I know I'm serious. I know this is real for me this time. I'm not joking around, so I can be trusted. And all of a sudden they want everybody to trust them. And if people don't trust them, then they feel disrespected. They feel betrayed. They feel family isn't there for them. They feel hurt badly. But what I want people to realize is you eroded trust for years. You were untrustworthy for years. You don't rebuild trust in a week or two or a month or two. It could take years of you consistently living healthy behaviors before they're able to trust you again. So accept that because of your past decisions, you created consequences that you now have to live with. You just can't magically make them disappear and tell everybody to ignore it. You have to be willing to accept that to rebuild trust takes a long time, and I have to accept that. Number 16, if I ask people for help, then they will see me as a burden, as a pain. They will kind of get tired of me. They will resent me. And so it's just better to figure it out on my own. And again, I think that comes out of complex trauma. It's the child who always felt like they were a burden and a pain to their parents, that their parents didn't really want to meet their needs, but they did it out of obligation, not out of willing love and desire. And if they asked for things, their parents rolled their eyes or sighed, and all of those different things just sent a loud message that your needs are a burden to others. And therefore, you should be ashamed of yourself for burdening others. That's not loving. So just muddle through, learn to do it yourself. Again, that comes out of unhealthy, unsafe people sending you the wrong messages based on their issues. In a healthy family, we're there for each other. We know that we're going to have to help each other. We accept that willingly. We don't see the person as a burden because we're going to have needs ourselves in the future and we're going to need them. This is a mutual giving and taking. That's what support is. Number 17. And this one is very subtle for many people, but it's there if they think about it. So if I do well in recovery, then I can go back to my old friends and lifestyle, or I can be successful in recovery without changing my old friends or lifestyle. So it's that whole loyalty to old friends, loyalty to toxic family, comfort with a certain lifestyle that might not be healthy, but yet that's what you've done for years. And something in you just gravitates back to that, pulls you back, makes you think that's where you need to go to be happy. That is so dangerous because what you're doing is going back usually to people who aren't safe, people who you've got dynamics with already that aren't healthy, lifestyle that puts you in vulnerable situations, in dangerous situations, back into old ways of thinking and behavior that can get you back into trouble. And so for most people in early recovery, they need to have strong boundaries with old behaviors, old lifestyle, family, and old friends until they get enough internal strength and understanding of what a healthy life looks like. Then sometimes they can kind of reacquaint themselves with some of those people and then make better decisions about old behaviors. But you need those boundaries if you really are going to survive. Because if you slide back to old friends, old toxic family, to old behaviors and lifestyle, usually it just is going to pull you right back pre-recovery. 18, and this is sadly a very common one that comes out of complex trauma, but it's the past is over. What I did in the past, what happened to me in the past, it has no effect on me today. How I cope or how I relate today, I make decisions today, I think today, and that determines my behavior. The past has nothing to do with it. The past is in the past. And there's all kinds of people that harp away on this, trying to make a big deal out of it. So let me just say a bit more about this one. So number one, the truth is the past is what influences how we approach relationships and life today. It's in early childhood that we learn templates of how to relate to the people in our life. And if they're all unhealthy, we learn to relate to narcissists, to very codependent people, and we learn how to survive in that. But that becomes normal. That becomes familiar to us. That's where we feel the most comfortable. And then when we get to adult life, our brain is attracted to what makes us feel normal and comfortable. So we get attracted back to those type of people with those type of relationship dynamics, even though they're very unhealthy. All of that is in the subconscious in the child. They're just picking up and learning how to survive in these relationships. And they're just building this whole subconscious template. And then they're learning thousands of things about coping in complex trauma. They're adapting in order to survive. And those are all maladaptations. And they go into the subconscious as programs. And you just begin to go into all of those maladaptations, not trusting, wearing masks, fawning, manipulating. You don't even realize you're doing it. It's so deeply ingrained in you at a subconscious level. And so you might be learning all these subconscious or all these conscious bits of information and tools today and think, yeah, I'm going to live by that. And you might for a bit until you get triggered or stress gets high and your brain says, can't trust the new tools. We're going back to the oldest templates that let us survive. And all of a sudden, your past is now running your present. So what I want you to understand, secondly, is this. You take all of those templates, all of those coping things. Now you move into adult life and you get in an intimate relationship. All of those templates, unhealthy coping, unhealthy relating. All of those maladaptations let you survive, but they don't allow a healthy relationship. You manipulate, you don't trust, you wear masks, you don't connect, you're not authentic. How are you expected to have an intimate relationship? So if you don't learn about all of those subconscious things, bring them to the conscious, then change them, heal them, you're dooming your intimate relationships in the presence. The third truth I want you to think about is this. Complex trauma is the type of trauma that is relationship trauma mainly. It's not external events so much. It's people that did things, and we were in an intimate relationship with those people. And so the wounds come from intimate relationships. The deepest wounds come from the most intimate relationships. And so you can do a lot of healing and growth when you're in a treatment center all by yourself, when you're in casual friendships, and you look like you're doing really well, but it's not triggering your deepest issues. And those deepest issues aren't going to get triggered until you're back in an intimate relationship. And then all of a sudden, all of these old wounds are getting triggered, these old ways of responding are being triggered, and you do so much damage. So recovery is really realizing that my past affects my present and affects my future. My past provided the templates and programming that operate in my subconscious, and I need to be able to work through those today. Line number 19. And this is a subtle one for many in complex trauma. But if I'm doing well, don't get my hopes up because I'm probably going to fail. And so what happens for so many people is, and we've talked about this in other videos, is that in complex trauma, a child keeps getting its hopes up that if I try this option, maybe then dad will meet my needs and dad will love me. That doesn't work. Their hopes get dashed. Okay, there's other options. Let's try this option. They get their hopes up again. But eventually, after years of getting their hopes up, their hope finally gets dashed to the point where they go, stop hoping. It's too painful to hope. And so now, once they're doing well at something in their brain wants to get their hopes up. That maybe we've got it this time. Maybe it's going to work this time. But then something comes crashing in that says, no, don't get your hopes up. It always fails. You're going to fail. And so that's where many sabotage their recovery. And so just be aware that that subtle lie that we're always going to be hopeless. So if you do well, don't get your hopes up. let's sabotage it because we're going to fail anyways. Then the next one is, and I hear this from people all the time. So let's say they're 5 years into recovery, 10 years into recovery, and they go back and visit, let's say, a friend, or they get a new job and they get a narcissistic boss, and all of a sudden they go back to an old behavior. And they get so frustrated and they go, I should be over this by now. So here's what I want you to understand. When you look at the deep, deep wounds, most of them happened when a child was very, very young. Even before they could put words to it, it was pre-verbal trauma. They were sensing things. They were feeling neglected, abandoned, abused, betrayed, humiliated, and they were shutting down. They were going to deep dissociation, deep ways of fawning to survive. That was from early in life. That became hardwired into their brain as a necessary behavior in many, many different categories in order to survive. And so when you try to reprogram something that started so early, was so deep because the wound was so deep, you don't just undo that. And so now today, when you go back to very high stress situations, your brain still is going to explore the old survival things, and it's going to gravitate at times back to them. So instead of saying, I should be over this by now, reframe it. Have some compassion. I go, wow, wonder what just got triggered that brought up this old behavior. Let's explore it. Let's find out what's happening below the surface here. Let's see what else needs to heal, what else I need to learn here. Let's turn this into a growth opportunity. So instead of using it to get frustrated and angry at yourself, as if you're a slow learner, as if you should have had all figured out, turn it into a learning growth opportunity. The next one is very common coming out of complex trauma, and it's recovery involves just learning information. Once I understand all the information, I will be healed. What happens for many people in complex trauma is they have so many painful emotions that they can't resolve because nobody's fixing their environment. Their parents aren't helping or changing anything. And so they can't resolve all these painful emotions. They're getting more and more painful emotions, so they just start shutting down emotions, stuffing them, hardening themselves to it, concluding that emotions are bad. And for some, they then dissociate to just living in their head. They're going to be cerebral. They're going to be academic. They're going to be logical and analytical. They're going to just figure out life. It's all going to become this formula that just has to get figured out. Then once they figure it out, then they'll know how to live, and they're going to be cool as a cucumber. Who needs emotions? So they come into recovery and they just think, I'm just going to make this an academic exercise, learn all the information, learn all the tools, and then I'll implement them and I'll be fixed. But what you realize is that most people who have done this in complex trauma just become a walking brain. That's not being fully human. That person's not capable of intimate relationships. That person's not a healthy person. So the goal of recovery, yes, is there's tons of learning. But you want to become fully human again. And that means you have to also heal emotions. You have to feel emotions. You have to grow emotionally. You have to do body work. You have to begin to meet all your 12 needs. This is not just an academic exercise. And you have to begin to connect to people again. That connection piece is essential. Number 23. And this is a very subtle one as well, but it's other people are the problem. If they change, I'd be okay. So this is where a husband goes into recovery, let's say, but his constant message is, my wife's the problem. Or the wife says, my husband's the problem. He's a narcissist. If he would change, then I'd be fine. And they make all their focus their partner, trying to get their partner to change, seeing them as the problem, thinking that if I just understand my partner better, then I can get them to change. And that gets the entire obsession for them in recovery, because they're operating by, I'm the victim here. And there's a sense in which you are the victim, but there's also a sense that you are playing the victim and thinking that I don't need to change anything. It's all the problems are because they are the problem. So I hope you understand that in a relationship, why did I get attracted to a narcissist? Probably because I got deep shame issues myself. And if I don't heal my own issues, even if I get out of this relationship, I'm going to go be attracted to another narcissist. So I got to work on me. And that means, my partner might have a whole bunch of problems that they need to look at, but I can't fix them. I can't control them. I can't make them change. I can only work on me. I can only change me. And I've got issues too. So my recovery shouldn't be focused on trying to fix everybody else as if they're the problem. I got to be able to see my part. I got to be able to change me and heal me. And that could, for some, save them years wasted in recovery trying to fix everybody else in their life to get them better, thinking that's going to make their life better just in and of itself. The final one, my situation is unique. Others won't understand me. This comes out of many in complex trauma. So they go, like, I was sexually abused, I was abandoned, I was put into foster care, I went from home to home, I was in a gang, I got into drugs, blah, blah, blah. And they go through, nobody else has gone through what I've gone through, so nobody else understands me. My situation is unique. And so what, sadly, they're doing, it's a narcissistic self-protection thing. And that is, I don't need to listen to anybody else because nobody else fully understands me. Nobody else has anything to offer to me because they don't fully understand me. Those are lies. What I want people to realize is when you get in a group with people who've gone through trauma, you're going to find that everybody's story's a bit different, but you have things in common. You both all understand abandonment, neglect, shame, fear. You understand the core issues. It's the same for everybody, regardless of the details of their experience. And they can speak to those issues in you because that's the core of the damage that was done. So don't get hung up on the details of the events of your life. Understand the wounds that it created. And then you begin to realize, wow, everybody with trauma has those same wounds, maybe in varying degrees, but they understand it. And then what I find with many people when they come into a group setting, like in our LIFT program, and they start sharing their stories, they go, wow, that person gets me. That person understands too. And all of a sudden you realize, I wanted to think I was unique because I was afraid that others might misunderstand me and reject me and judge me. But when I'm with a group where I realize they've got the same pain, it is healing to be understood, to be accepted, to not be judged. But you got to risk being willing to do that. So those are 24 lies that are common, sadly, for many people as they come into recovery. I hope that just helps you think them through and get to the truth about what recovery involves.